document written by Europeans.
Yeah, you can find this, folks, if you do a search on Google for Red Man's Gospel PDF. You can find this file and download it.
Okay, that's the cultural problem because of the failure of the school system to teach the history, origins of our Constitution, and what culture in America is about. This ideological discussion that we're having about the European imperial culture,
Yes.
the Long Walk people, versus the indigenous culture that was adapted by the people who rebelled against it, who came here. And the fact is that democracy was exported back from America to Europe. And the French thanked us by sending us the Statue of Liberty. And this situation that we have now, where our society is in trouble because the people who gave us the Long Walk brought these institutions from Europe, which featured the European banking precept of going to prison because you owe somebody money. The people that lived here knew that the people from Europe were crazy because they would kill you over a shiny rock and gold. There was no poverty, no prisons or pollution in this country when the Europeans arrived in 1492. Now we have poverty, prisons, and pollution because the imperial culture is a materialistic culture without love. And that brings me to the thought, going back to the original discussion that I really was trying to get to, and that is that the indigenous people are now calling for an end to the human warfare system that's killing us all, that we need to break away from and create institutions based on cooperation, especially in love.
And I agree. Like there needs to be
throw that word out there because the problem that we're having with this situation that we were discussing there at City Hall is because the people have no love of the earth. They're willing to support the ridiculous technology or hydraulic fracturing of the earth to kick out some gas and oil, and that has a really bad side effect. Actually, it has
a couple of pieces of silver. Makes no sense.
Yeah, and a really bad side effect that's not being discussed is that the water table doesn't recover for 10,000 years after you frack an area. And guess what, people? If you don't have fresh water for 3 days, a funny thing happens to you. You die. And that's why the people wisely put that in our Constitution, that you have a right to clean air and pure water. They put clean air first because if you don't have some clean air, in 5 minutes you're dead. Water, 3 days. Food, 7 days. So our government needs to be brought around to common sense. And we have the article in our Constitution.
It needs to implement and follow essential protocols. Like we need to have government change now. Like in my personal opinion, and many other people in Occupy do feel that, and government needs to change its protocols and follow the original protocols that are just and stabilizing liberty, and also like
Dave,
yes.
What I was really trying to get to with you is that you're the government.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And the problem that we're having
all government,
is that the people
but
who are the
schism.
government.
The thing is, there is a schism. The reality, though, and what I'm saying is that there's a schism between the level of power that we citizens have and the level of power that our elected officials have, and the fact that there's a whole giant process in that where we have to elect people to represent our positions, but the things they don't follow through with it, and like there's policies, but then there's also the Constitution, which our protocols are never supposed to be messed with, and then there's the issues of like what laws do the state, what constitutional laws do the state have that are more powerful than the federal government? To give an example of that, for example, Ron Paul, he's a huge constitutionalist. He's like the most well-renowned constitutionalist of our day, and he's all about going back to the Constitution. He's all about going back to the original Constitution. And that sounds great on many levels, but there's also some controversial issues with that. He's actually saying he actually wants to eliminate the 14th Amendment because the 14th Amendment was not in the original Constitution. And the thing is, like, that is pretty messed up. And like he thinks that it should be state rights, not because. And then the thing is, there's a lot of people who are saying that he's a racist because of that. I don't think so. Honestly, I do not think he is a racist. He's this he's like he's over technical. He's over technical, and the reality is that if that law was eliminated, if that amendment was eliminated, then basically it would open up the doors for racism to resurface in law, which is basically the thing is our liberties, our intrinsic liberties, are set in logic, and you know, that is above that's above the Constitution, like our developmental cultural progression. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to be like rational, our rationality, and
Bob,
we
you
just
want to
consider that.
make a
Yes.
comment?
You make some good points, but one I wanted to just say I do follow Ron Paul because I think that he's the best expression of that we've had in modern times, or at least
just to
latest
quickly
times
say,
about
like
the
I'm seeing that
Constitution.
there's a little problem with being overemphasized on the technicality of the Constitution, because you need to use basic, all-encompassing rationality. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he's.
I understand.
Yeah.
I think I understand it pretty well.
Yeah.
And it's not a technical or a missing technical understanding or over technical understanding by Ron Paul. Is to, at least in my view, is that he's saying that people do not have a constitutional perspective about the Constitution anymore. That the Constitution always allowed for individual liberty. And you can do whatever you want and hold your own opinions. In fact, the Constitution, in fact, is supposed to protect that right, not interfere with it in any way. And he's against any government ideas that might, in the you know, with the excuse that is going to help, but actually hinder, you know, your free exercise of speech and so forth. On the 14th Amendment, he really doesn't have a position against the 14th Amendment. There are others who do have some problems because of the...
Are you absolutely sure of that?
Absolutely sure.
I've heard people say that he wants to eliminate it.
I follow Ron Paul quite well, and I'm absolutely sure he has no problems with that whatsoever. They do have, him and Rand Paul do have some more questions about the Civil Rights Act, because they have some problems as to how it fits in the Constitution. But as far as the 14th Amendment, that is an amendment to the Constitution, and all just amendments are considered a part of the Constitution. I don't think that there's any argument about that. I want to further a couple of things that was mentioned. Too often this is referred to, and I think that this is part of the problem of what you're discussing. You feel as though there's a democracy and the people need to vote to, or need some way to have their power expressed better than what it has been captured so far. But this is actually set up not as a democracy, and I must raise this as an issue. It's set up as a republic. It has some democratic features in that you do elect governments, but certain things were off the table for election. And that's why it's important to understand the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence clearly said that these things come from God, so you don't vote on them.
So the problem is that they've not been these liberties and values have not been followed and dismantled. And like all I'm saying is that has been an argument by many people, particularly on the left, that yes, the values of the Constitution are great in the Declaration of Independence, but the problem is not so much. The problem is like to trust a social system, a political system that has dichotomy. I'm simply sharing the realities that people feel. I have my own personal feelings, but yes.
I understand. Yeah. But the question is, and what the Constitution has let free, and the Declaration declares, is that the power rests in the people themselves. And they have the ability to do just as we're doing today.
But through voting.
No, not through voting. Not just through voting. I mean, voting is one form under the Constitution where you elect officers of the Constitution, the officers created under the Constitution. However, you have to remember that most of your liberties under the Constitution simply were left free. They're free for the individual to express as he
freedom of speech, assemble.
But it's not. But you have to remember under the 9th and 10th Amendments, and this is where you get the states' rights issue. You don't hear the 9th Amendment; those are individual rights. That if it's not something that's outlined in the Constitution, it's because you have an absolute right to enjoy your liberties the best way you wish to express them. the Constitution is saying that no powerful, entity under the Constitution can use its power to suppress your right to have free assembly, for instance, free speech. That these things are left for the individual, and that the individual, in the end, is supreme. He's sovereign over all of these institutions.
Yeah.
What he has done is delegated certain powers to the Constitution, both federal and state, but only to a limited extent, and those limits are actually spelled out in the Constitutions. So you have to be kind of read these things technically. These are the only thing given up. Anything that's not given up under the 9th and 10th Amendment remain with the states or with the people themselves. So the Constitution kind of leaves people free, except for one or two things. Yeah. Well, it's 18 things under the Constitution that the federal government does as a job. The other things is just simply took on.
Well, it's very simple right here. What the real problem is, in this particular domain of this discussion, the problem is actually rather the culture. We're culturally stagnant. But what the thing is, what liberals, and the thing is, I'm neither liberal or conservative, but what liberals argue is that really, and this is what conservatives need to understand, that our type of governmental system where there is a dichotomy of power, and yes, like it's understood that we the people have the power, we have the ability and liberty to express our power in other ways, but that it produces the fact that formal law and formal policies and transactions can only be made through electoral politicians. Like formal is what I'm saying. The thing is, it intellectually and culturally stagnifies we the people, and that also the real thing is that we the people need to awaken intellectually, yes, and look and be creative and innovative. But also, I do believe that we need to be able to interface with legal policies more directly, and to create more transparency is a big surface way of how we can do this. We can make and things like today we have a lot more potentialities to engage with like government regarding like technologies and all that.
Exactly, and I believe
we need to do that.
I believe that is being done largely through the internet.
Yeah.
But that people, the power at this point in time still remains with the people.
Technically, yeah.
Technically, yes. And in a real sense. I mean, every time that people...
Latently.
No, not even latently. Every time that an issue has come to the surface and the people have activated, and I'll just use one or two examples here, but like, let's say Vietnam, that the system wanted to push Vietnam. And of course, there's no real just basis on any level for that. But it took an awakening of the people themselves to say no. Then you have people that refused to go, people that threw their draft cards into big bonfires and so forth. And eventually it reached a point that that activity could no longer be sustained. Mm-hmm. What is important is that people understand their power and start to actively use it. They have it. And that's the same thing that I'm trying to reach out, along with others, regarding the current wars. Many of them just do not have a just fundamental basis. And even if you were immoral and thought that, hey, we can kill up a few people and take their oil, that we're not actually even benefiting from that. That there's no real basis. These wars do not produce for this country any good. It produces for, I believe, a few key people in leadership positions a certain amount of power that really doesn't funnel back to the people, but the people give up both the blood and their treasure. Once I think that this is properly framed for the American population, that they'll wake up and say no. And to a large extent, that is what's happening. The Occupy groups, to some extent, have latched onto this. What we have missed so far is to have a keynote speaker. Ron Paul probably is the best of this, that actually carries it on a formal platform that, hey, we shouldn't engage in wars where we're not actually being attacked and we're defending ourselves. But we need to just pick that up more so that, basically we can have peace and friendship around the world, and we can have trade around the world, and we don't produce wars around the world.
Yeah. What I meant by latent is like, technically and physically we have the power, but it's only latent because when you talk to everyone out over here, we know and we speak with a sense.